What is going on, everybody? How's everyone doing tonight? Hope you guys are all having a fantastic evening. And again, like I've been saying every single day, as we make our way through this coronavirus pandemic, I hope everybody is social distancing and taking the necessary precautions to avoid getting this virus that is wreaking havoc across the country and around the world. But despite the fact that we are dealing with this virus, there are other things going on, like we've been saying. And one of the things that has been going on lately is the battle over religious services and whether or not those services should be deemed essential. And here in New Jersey, we've been seeing there's a large Orthodox Jewish population in a town called Lakewood, New Jersey. And this has been a huge issue as of late, where they have been defying local authorities, local ordinances, or whatever you want to say that they're implementing right now. They've been defying the requests to cease from having gatherings of between, I think it's now what, 4 or more people. Hey, thanks for the super hearts on Periscope. Appreciate it. But they are defying the order to have they're having mass gatherings despite the fact that they're being told not to, essentially. That's basically what's going on. But this raises a deeper point now, because them going after the idea of whether or not we're allowed to have religious gatherings is essentially trampling on the First Amendment of the Constitution, freedom of speech and freedom of religion and expression of religion. That is one of the cornerstones of our republic. And again, nobody's daring to question this or speak up and even pose the question of whether or not we should be allowed to whether or not religious services are essential and whether or not we should be allowed to have religious services amidst the coronavirus pandemic. And religious gatherings you can still have religious gatherings and make it safe. You can sterilize things. You can still practice social distancing. Even if you're going to have a religious gathering, you can do it with common sense measures to help avoid people from getting sick. It can be done. So again, it goes back to the idea that, they're essentially, people are forgetting their constitutional rights at this point. They're totally forgetting their constitutional rights because we're watching on, excuse me, we're watching on the mainstream media now, the never-ending, relentless coverage of this coronavirus. And I get it. It's a serious concern. It's a serious issue. But where was the concern when swine flu, H1N1, was wreaking havoc across the country during the Obama administration? And no, it's not a whataboutism. It's a hypocrisy issue, like it usually is. The left always comes with that whataboutism nonsense, but essentially they're using that as a cover because you're calling out the hypocrisy of the left. That's what you're doing. You're calling out the hypocrisy whenever they come out with that term about whataboutism. But essentially, when Obama was in office, we dealt with the swine flu, and they weren't shutting down the entire country over the swine flu, and it was pretty serious. From what I've read, 60,000 people died. 60,000 people died, and again, from what I read, millions were infected with the swine flu, and we didn't see any of this type of reaction, and we definitely didn't see any of the media bobbleheads losing their minds over this. So just to put it's just a matter of putting things in perspective. And like I always say, questioning everything. We have to question everything because you can't believe what's being fed to you in the media anymore. You just can't believe it. Yeah, somebody on my Periscope stream here is saying they had the swine flu. Yeah, 60,000 people ended up with the swine flu when that was going on, and or 60,000 people died from the swine flu, and nothing was said. And again, if you just go on Google and you pull up some of the statistics for what's going on with this coronavirus, and from what I saw, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, in China, it was 85,000 people recovered out of, I think, 92,000 people that were infected, which came out to like a 92% survival rate. So again, it's just a matter of putting things in perspective when it's just this constant barrage of media coverage right now. But anyway, the issue at hand right now is the idea of whether or not religious gatherings are to be deemed essential. And Texas governor issues executive order designating religious services as essential. This means that they are exempt from the bans on social gatherings. Some counties and cities in Texas have been giving conflicting and even unconstitutional orders in reaction to the necessary Stop the Spread movement. It says, in recent weeks, there have been varying and sometimes hypocritical, unconstitutional, and conflicting orders from Texas county judges and Texas city mayors. One of the biggest points of controversy has been county judges and city mayors banning all religious services and threatening arrests of pastors. So it's not only are they banning the religious services, they're taking it to a whole new level. They're actually threatening to arrest pastors. Give me a break here. So it says, this certainly seems to violate the Constitution's First Amendment protections of religion. These orders also seem completely hypocritical. While there is no question that the virus is serious, like I keep saying, the virus is, it's not, we're not saying the virus isn't real. The virus is very real, and steps should be taken to stop the spread. Absolutely. But that does not mean that the most basic constitutional rights can be violated, such as banning churches. And again, you come out and, you know, to the average person right now, if they were hearing this, they would come right at you and say, oh, well, you want it's the typical left-wing talking point. You want grandma to die because you want to stand up for the Constitution. And you got to think about this, because if the left manages to use this crisis as a means to circumvent the Constitution, once the First Amendment falls, they've already all but banned the Second Amendment, at least where I live, pretty much. Once these amendments once the Constitution starts to fall, we're done. We're done. So it says religious services are essential to this great state of Texas and the United States of America. They are expressly protected by the Texas state and U.S. constitutions. More reasonable restrictions can be enforced in order to stop the spread. It was outrageous that people were being banned from going to see their pastor, even just one-on-one in the parking lot. So you couldn't even go to see your pastor one-on-one. It wasn't even a matter of, that would be social distancing. You could see the pastor one-on-one from 6 feet apart, and you would be just fine. But they wouldn't even let you do that. So yet in these same counties which restricted religious services, you were still able to do a long list of many activities that do not even seem essential, like going to get beer, or in cases of essential activities you could do with limited restrictions, such as going into a crowded grocery store. So that just gives you, again, it's all about putting it in perspective. You can go to the grocery store. Obviously that's essential. Obviously. You could do that, but you couldn't partake in your religious services, even if it meant just going to see your pastor one-on-one. So it says here, the executive order advises Texans to stay at home for the next month to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The new executive order comes into effect at 12:01 a.m. on Thursday and will be in place until April 30th, which aligns with a federal recommendation on social distancing that was announced by President Trump on Monday. The new order supersedes the one issued on March 19th, which prohibited social gatherings greater than 10 people. So Governor Abbott refuses to label the policy as a shelter-in-place or a stay-at-home order because he believes that can be confusing. And this is something that I hate to side with Cuomo at times, but he actually spoke some common sense a few weeks ago when he was talking about de Blasio considering issuing a shelter-in-place in New York City, which a shelter-in-place, like Cuomo explained it. He said that, shelter-in-place is like if there's an imminent threat, like if there was like, I don't know, an earthquake or a bomb threat or something like that, or a shooting event, that would be a shelter in place order. Shelter in place isn't really useful when you're battling a virus. But nonetheless, it's just the language the left likes to throw out there all the time. So it says he wants to assure Texans that they can continue with essential portions of their activities like grocery shopping, provided that they maintain social distancing. It does, however, prohibit eating in restaurants and bars and extends school closures to May 4th. So there you have it. This essentially talks about the fact that religious services in Texas, at least, according to Governor Abbott, are going to be deemed essential. And there's no reason that you can't find a way to let people exercise their religious, services. They to exercise their religion. There's no reason you can't find a way for them to do that. It just doesn't make sense. So, in accordance with guidance from DSHS Commissioner Dr. Hellerstedt, and to achieve the goals established by the president to reduce the spread of COVID-19, every person in Texas shall, except where necessary, to provide or obtain essential services, minimizing social gatherings, and minimize in-person contact with people who are not in the same household. Quote, essential services shall consist of everything listed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in its guidance on the Essential Critical Infrastructure Workforce version 2.0, plus religious services conducted in churches, congregations, and houses of worship. So it's nice to see that, leave it to Texas to stand up for the Constitution. They are going to go against what other states are doing and deem religious services to be an essential service. So it says other essential services may be added to the list with the approval of Texas Division of Emergency Management. Texas Division of Emergency Management shall maintain an online list of essential services as specified in the executive order and in any approved additions. Requests for additions should be directed to Texas Division of Emergency Management or by visiting their website. So there you have it. You have Governor Abbott standing on the Constitution and defending the First Amendment rights of the citizens of the great state of Texas. So moving forward here, leave it to Mayor de Blasio to threaten permanent shutdowns of any group doing public religious services. So this is what you see, what is diametrically opposed to what's going on in Texas. And the fact that de Blasio would, if he had the chance, he'd wipe his ass with our Constitution, because I live in New Jersey and I see what goes on in New York City. I have a firsthand account of what this idiot is doing to that city. And that city has essentially become a third world country now. I used to commute into the city into Midtown and Penn Station. Penn Station is literally a third world country. It is horrible, and that's what you get when you have a socialist running the city. Yeah, permanent. He's threatening to permanently shut down any group doing public religious services. So New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said on Friday that churches could be closed down permanently if people are gathering for services during the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, I want to say to all those who are preparing the potential of religious services this weekend, if you go to your synagogue, if you go to your church and attempt to hold services after having been told so often not to, our enforcement agents will have no choice but to shut down those services, de Blasio announced during a press conference streamed online. Notice, this just dawned on me while I'm going over this here. Notice how he mentions synagogues and churches, but he doesn't mention mosques. Is there a reason that he didn't mention mosques? Is it because that if he did, then he might face backlash from the Muslim community, and in the Muslim community, not bashing them whatsoever, but the Muslim community they're considered a protected class. And he won't dare he won't tread on that side of the aisle. He won't dare go there, but he has no problem calling out synagogues and churches. And I think that, when I defend the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Christian community, they should all have the right to go out and exercise their religious freedom right now. despite what's going on with this coronavirus. The First Amendment and the freedom of religion extends across all religions. And I defend all of those people's ability to peacefully exercise their religious freedom, which is it's being trampled on across the board. So it says here, in case of disobedience, law enforcement, quote, will take additional action up to the point of fines and potentially closing the building permanently. Quote, again, I'm sorry I have to tell you this, but anyone who's hearing this, take it seriously. You've been warned. So now he's warning people. He's getting up on his dictator podium and he's saying, you've been warned and we're going to shut you down if you defy me. And he says you need to stop services, help people practice their faiths in different ways, but not in groups, not in gatherings that could endanger people. Again, you can practice social distancing. You could go to a park and hold a religious service and people could stand 6 feet apart in an open air park. There's no reason that there's not ways that this could be done. So the mayor said he understands how important people's faiths are to them, and we need our faiths in this time of crisis. Please. At the same time, he said, we do not need gatherings that will endanger people. No faith tradition endorses anything that endangers the members of the faith. No one's saying that we're endorsing anything that's going to put anyone in danger. So he goes on to say that the NYPD, fire department, buildings department, and everyone has been instructed that if they see worship services going on, they will go to the officials of that congregation. They'll inform them they need to stop the services and disperse. So this is, again, you have to put it in perspective here. You have the right to the freedom of speech, and that is not going to be taken away for anything. It's not going to be taken away for anything. And that's what it's coming down to now. It's really coming down to this. It's coming to a tipping point right now. And it's clear, I've been saying it all along, that the left is doing whatever they can to use this to go after Trump. And they're also using this as a means to exercise their power to go after our constitutional rights at this point. So, moving on. Despite the fact that we're seeing the religious services be shut down, be threatened, be fined, be threatened with permanent shutdown, we're seeing a lot of these abortion clinics fighting to stay open, and a lot of people are coming to their aid, despite the fact that, and I know this is going to be extremely controversial because how dare you ever speak out and condemn abortion, but nonetheless, we're being told that religious services are non-essential when they're outlined in the Constitution, yet abortion clinics need to be deemed essential and need to stay open when essentially, aside from an abortion being a medical emergency, if the life of the mother or child or both are in danger, aside from that, I've been told that abortions were an elective procedure. They're not essential. They're not absolutely necessary, especially in a time of crisis when you have the coronavirus pandemic wreaking havoc across the country and people aren't, excuse me, and nurses and doctors and medical personnel don't even have enough protective equipment, but we need to use that protective equipment for the people that are going to be performing abortions. Something doesn't make sense there. So anyway, Ohio abortion clinics ordered to stop procedures due to coronavirus. Excuse me. All of Ohio's abortion clinics have been ordered to stop providing the procedure as the state clamps down on medical services to preserve protective gear amid the growing coronavirus outbreak. The order, if enforced, would make abortion even more difficult to obtain in the state that's been aggressively attempting to limit and restrict the procedure. Excuse me, my throat is so dry right now. Sorry about that, guys. So it says here, on Friday, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost sent letters to 2 facilities that provide abortion, Women's Med Center in Dayton and Planned Parenthood of Southwest Ohio's Cincinnati Surgery Center, ordering them to stop providing any services like abortion that require the use of personal protective equipment, said Bethany McCorkle, a spokesperson for the Ohio Attorney General's office in an email to CBS News Saturday morning. Quote, you and your facility are ordered to immediately stop performing non-essential and elective surgical abortions. Non-essential surgical abortions are those that can be delayed without undue risk to the current or future health of a patient, Yost wrote in the letter, which was shared with CBS News. And yes, I am feeling okay. I'm coughing from my allergies. I've taken my temperature and it's been fine, thank God. But I have a dry throat and I've been coughing from what seems like my allergies because the trees in the backyard are exploding with pollen right now. So moving on. Quote, if you and your facility do not immediately stop performing non-essential or elective surgical abortions in compliance with the health director's order, the Department of Health will take appropriate measures. So you actually see here that they're actually clamping down on abortion clinics. And this is actually a good thing to see right now because, again, these abortions overall are considered an elective procedure. And we're being told that we're in dire straits right now. Doctors are reusing personal protective equipment and putting their lives in danger right now as they treat these critically ill patients. So it says here the health department's order issued on Wednesday does not call out whether abortion services would be considered non-essential or elective. Whether abortion is considered essential will ultimately determine whether the procedure can continue in Ohio amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Frida Levinson, the legal director of the ACLU of Ohio, said abortion should fall into this category. Quote, we are in an unprecedented time of crisis, and everyone needs to ensure that people's health and safety is protected, Levinson said in a statement provided to CBS News on Saturday. But the government should not use this crisis as an excuse to target abortion clinics and attempt to take away the ability of Ohioans to access abortion, which is time-sensitive and essential health care. So again, this goes on to, this is the typical battle over abortion, whether or not it's deemed to be essential health care. But at the same time, we're being told that gathering for a religious service, even if you do so safely, cannot be deemed essential when it is a constitutional right. But you don't have a constitutional right to have an abortion, but we're being told that an abortion should be deemed an essential service and we should take the personal protective equipment away from those that need it who are treating COVID-19 patients and use it for this elective procedure. So let's just keep that in perspective. It's all about perspective here. And the perspective you're not going to get this perspective from the mainstream media because they don't dare trample on these types of sensitive topics. They will never do that. So moving on. Abortion providers sue Texas over coronavirus outbreak order. So in Austin, Texas, Planned Parenthood joined other abortion providers Wednesday to sue Texas over moving to ban abortions during the coronavirus outbreak, including one clinic owner saying Republican Governor Greg Abbott's weekend order has already resulted in more than 150 canceled appointments. Again, I don't see where we see abortion in the Constitution. If you want to leave it at a state level, state by state, I would be okay with that. I personally don't agree with abortion whatsoever. But if you really want to come down to it and go by the Constitution, constitutionally speaking, it can be a state issue because it doesn't fall under the confines of the federal Constitution. And when it's a state issue, then you have the ability, if you don't like what's going on in your state, you can vote you can advocate to vote certain people out of government that you don't agree with, or you have the ability to get up and move to another state that might be better aligned with your beliefs. You have the freedom to do that. But when the federal government is running things, you don't really have that same sort of freedom. So the federal lawsuit filed in Austin, Texas is among the most high-profile challenges to a government response to the coronavirus pandemic. Abortion providers accused Republican leaders in Texas of exploiting the pandemic for politics after Abbott on Sunday halted non-essential surgeries in order to free up medical supplies to fight the COVID-19, the disease caused by the virus. That was followed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a Republican, saying the order banned, quote, any type of abortion that is not medically necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother. And there you go. If it's a procedure that is being done outside of a procedure that is to preserve the life or health of the mother, it's not an essential service at that point. It's an elective service. So it says here the order in Texas is in effect until at least April 21st. Quote, abortion is essential healthcare and is a time-sensitive service, said Amy Hagstrom Miller, president of the Whole Women's Health. She said the 150 plus cancellations across her 3 clinics in Texas left some women begging for the abortions they needed. So, quote, this is obviously going to save some lives, which we hope would continue on, Paxton said. I don't even see how people who are on the other side of this issue at this time would dispute that we need our hospitals to take care of the really sick. And that's another thing. You know, if God forbid a woman goes in for an abortion and something goes wrong, then that becomes a serious issue and has to be treated in a hospital. Meanwhile, we're being told that, you know, ventilators are at a premium and there's not enough personal protective equipment to go around. And in the tri-state area up here near New York City, we're being told that there may not even be enough beds to treat the sick people that might come down with coronavirus. So Texas has been a battleground over abortion rights for a decade. Whole Women's Health has also sued Texas over a sweeping 2013 anti-abortion law that resulted in more than half of Texas abortion clinics shuttering before it was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. The issue over abortion during the pandemic has also flared in Ohio, where abortion clinics received letters Friday from Republican Attorney General Dave Yost ordering them to cease all non-essential surgical abortions. Yost wrote that the procedures violate a March 17th order issued by the state health director. However, representatives of Ohio clinics said that they were in compliance with the health director's order and plan to continue providing abortions. So there you have it. Essentially, we just need to be more cognizant of what is going on with this coronavirus pandemic and the idea that we need to keep our constitutional rights in mind. Obviously, we need to do so while still being cognizant of what's going on with the virus and taking the necessary precautions to keep ourselves and our family members and others healthy and to avoid spreading the virus. But we need to do so while ensuring that our constitutional rights aren't trampled on in the process. So just keep that in mind, guys. I'm going to leave you guys with that. Hope you guys all stay safe and stay healthy. And we need to continue praying for our country and our fellow citizens to come through this pandemic. And, you know, again, I have faith that we will pull through and we'll come out better on the other side. So thank you guys for watching. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic evening. Talk to you guys soon.